What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody's enjoying their day so far. We are back with another top five fantasy football ranking. Last week we went through the running backs, and this week we will be looking at the pass catchers. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing the quarterbacks and the tight ends to finish this thing out. And then we'll get into some more strategies and then some more mock drafts over the next couple of weeks, getting you prepared for your upcoming fantasy football drafts for the 2025-2026 season. So let's go ahead and dive into the top five fantasy football wide receivers heading into this season. And starting at the number one spot is going to be Jamar Chase. Now, Chase has been in my top five, it feels like, for the past couple of seasons. He's really been outstanding in the Cincinnati Bengals offense, especially with being paired with his old college quarterback in Joe Burrow. Last season, though, Jamar Chase really popped off in fantasy football. He was the wide receiver number one, and he was among the top three all players. Combine that with the quarterback, running back position. Jamar Chase really had an historic season with the Cincinnati Bengals last season. So looking at his ADP, he is number one going off of the draft. So I either seen Bijan Robinson or Jamar Chase. It really just depends on if you want to go running back or go wide receiver. But if you do want to start off wide receiver, Jamar Chase is going to be the guy to start off your 2025 drafts. I could see the people who still want to go with CeeDee Lamb. I did have CeeDee Lamb as my wide receiver one last year. That ultimately panned out to be the case. He was a top three wide receiver in fantasy last season. But Jamar Chase this season just feels like a clear-cut wide receiver number one. Now, is he going to do what he did last season? Who knows? Especially with T. Higgins being healthy, because last season T. Higgins missed a couple of games that really opened the door for Jamar Chase to really open this thing up. So you will have that target competition with T. Higgins, but you really be worried about that. The main focal point of the Cincinnati Bengals offense, as we know over the past couple of years, has been that Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection. So the touchdowns were definitely up there in 2024. I expect the same in 2025. The Bengals defense is definitely a question mark to still be decided. So this Cincinnati Bengals offense, it might be a repeat of 2024 that they might have to score, 30, maybe even 40 points a game to even have a chance to win the game. But just looking through some of his projected points, 346.2, that is among the best out of all the wide receivers. He is projected 12 receiving touchdowns, which is, what you're looking for with the number one overall pick. So if you do have the number one overall pick, if you don't want to go Bijan Robinson, I would definitely lean towards Jamar Chase. I expect him to have another good season with the orange and black. Now let's continue our top five ranking to the number two. And like I mentioned, he was my number one wide receiver last season, CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is going to be a new offense for the Dallas Cowboys. Starting with the running back position, that is a little bit up in the air still. Will it be Javonte Williams, who's coming from the Broncos, or will it be their rookie running back in Jaden Blue out of Texas, since their other running back decided to go on to the Carolina Panthers and Rico Dowdle. So Dowdle leaves the offense. Now, going to the wide receiver position, CeeDee Lamb is definitely going to be their wide receiver number one, but they did bring in George Pickens. And it feels like this is the first time since that they had Amari Cooper that Dallas really has a prototypical wide receiver too, because over the past couple of years, they were running with Cedric Wilson, Brandon Cooks for a couple of years. They mainly went to the tight end and Jake Ferguson or CeeDee Lamb in this one. But CeeDee Lamb, even with, how terrible of a season that the Cowboys had last season, he was pretty solid wide receiver in fantasy, especially with the Dak Prescott injury, having to deal with Cooper Rush for pretty much the majority of the season. But I do expect a healthy Dak Prescott back, and I think that Dak is one of my favorite quarterbacks to draft in late rounds. He honestly could play himself into a top 10 quarterback finish when it's all said and done, because I expect this Cowboys offense to be improved. Like I mentioned, with the addition of George Pickens, I think that the running back, with the addition of Jaden Blue, Javonte Williams still has to prove it to me. He has been dealing with a lot of injuries. But CeeDee Lamb, I think the addition of George Pickens is only going to help him, especially on the defensive side. I think with the prowess of having George Pickens on the defense, going up against the defense, I think that CeeDee Lamb outside of Jamar Chase really feels like that clear-cut number two wide receiver. looking at his ADP, he is going in the middle round of the first round there at number 5. So he's going behind guys like Jahmyr Gibbs. Justin Jefferson is also around that ADP too. So if Jamar Chase isn't gone, it seems that the mock drafts so far and the regular drafts that are going on all the platforms are picking CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 2. I feel the same. And look at his projected totals, 294.2. So looking at Jamar Chase's and CeeDee Lamb's numbers, that's a pretty wide margin, but I wouldn't be surprised if CeeDee Lamb is right there with Jamar Chase being the 1 and the 2 heading into the season. 7.6 receiving touchdowns. Some of those touchdowns might get cut by George Pickens and Jake Ferguson, but I still expect CeeDee Lamb to be a clear-cut top 5 wide receiver heading into this season. So if you're really looking for a safe pick, Lamb also has some upside, especially if Dak Prescott is a full go for this season. So I expect big things for Lamb heading into the 2025 season. And rounding out the top 3 is Justin Jefferson. Feels like I've had all 3 of these wide receivers in my past rankings of Jefferson, Lamb, and Chase in some order. And Justin Jefferson, I was worried about him heading into the last season. With the quarterback position, we just didn't know who was going to be their quarterback, especially J.J. McCarthy being out for the season. And we were proven all wrong. Sam Darnold played really well. The Minnesota Vikings ended up winning 14 games last season. And Justin Jefferson still proved that he's still one of the best wide receivers, not only in fantasy, but in the NFL. So Justin Jefferson, it doesn't matter who's throwing him the football. It will be J.J. McCarthy, though. J.J. McCarthy is back from injury, so I expect McCarthy and Jefferson to be a pretty good connection in the NFL. Looking at his ADP, like I mentioned, he is going right behind CeeDee Lamb at number 6, so he's going in the middle to start of the later rounds in the first round. But like I mentioned, offense, not too much of a change. Still the same cast of characters. Aaron Jones is still in the backfield. And then you have Jordan Addison as your wide receiver 2 in Minnesota, along with TJ Hawkinson being the tight end 1 for this Vikings offense. And I think that this Vikings offense definitely has some potential, especially in the NFC North. But like I mentioned, Justin Jefferson, if you're just really looking for a solid, safe receiver to get in the first round, because all these wide receivers, they're going to give you a nice floor, but they also have that high upside for you every single week, because a guy like Justin Jefferson, he could put up 20, fantasy points per game pretty much every week. So looking at his projected points, it is a little bit in between CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase right there at 303.7. And then he also has more projected receiving touchdowns at 9.2. So Justin Jefferson heading into the 2025 season is a really solid prospect if you're a fantasy football manager. I did forget to mention at the start, all these rankings that we do over the next couple of weeks are PPR based. So we're looking for those, who gets the most target shares. That's why your wide receiver 1s will be pushed up. Your wide receiver 2s are going to be that middle tier there. So Justin Jefferson finishes out our top 3. Now let's go on to some 2 new faces that we didn't really have in our top 5 rankings last year, but just on the outside. Starting at number 4 is Puka Ngata, wide receiver 1 now for the Los Angeles Rams. You could honestly argue that he has been the wide receiver 1 for the Rams for at least 2 seasons now. His ADP, though, is number 10. So that's right at the end of the draft. Whether you're in a 10-team league, 12-team, 14 league, he's still going to be a late-round pick, which honestly, to me, that could be a really good steal, because I think that Puka Ngata has any chance out of these wide receivers to be right up there with the CeeDee Lambs and Jamar Chases of the world. You no longer have Cooper Kupp. It feels like Puka Ngata has taken over that Cooper Kupp role that we saw in Kupp, in the 2020-2021 season. But Matthew Stafford has proven to be one of the safest quarterbacks in fantasy football. 291.3 projected points for Puka Ngata. I think that's a really solid ceiling for Puka Ngata. Looking at the Rams offense, Kyren Williams will be manning the backfield. And your newest wide receiver addition is Davante Adams, the veteran. He has been on the Packers. He's been with the Raiders and the Jets, and now he is on the Rams. I definitely think you do have to worry about him a little bit, but I think that this is still going to be the Puka Ngata show. He has shown it in the past 2 years in the NFL that he is just a target monster, and I think that he is a PPR monster as well. So looking at his projected points, like I mentioned, 291.3, Projected receiving touchdowns is a little down. I think that a lot of the experts are thinking that Devontae Adams is going to cut into that receiving touchdown too much, but I think that he is still worthy as a first-round pick in the 2025 draft. Now, rounding out the top 5 receiver, this was, I mean, you could have gone with anybody here, but I ended up going with Malik Neighbors, wide receiver of the New York Giants. Looking at his ADP, he is going a pick ahead of Puka Ngata, so it's just preference of which wide receiver do you want in the late first round. Looking at his projected points heading into the new season, 279.2. So it is the lowest out of all of them. His receiving touchdowns is a little bit higher than Ngata at 7.7, because let's be honest with you, there's really no competition of the Giants in the backfield. You do have Tyrone Tracy, who really had a solid season last season, even though the Giants' offense was one of the worst in the NFL. And, I mean, if Neighbors – he had a really phenomenal rookie season, even with the terrible quarterback play. And it feels like the quarterback play is improving. There are 3 quarterbacks that the Giants brought into this new team. Russell Wilson is one of them. Jackson Dart, they drafted in the late first round. And they also have Jameis Winston. I expect Russell Wilson, Brian Dable did announce, I believe this week, that Russell Wilson will be the starter for the Giants. So quarterback play is going to be improved, but how much? I don't think that's going to be like an elite quarterback that you're going to be getting, because Russell Wilson hasn't really shown too much over his past couple of seasons with the Broncos and as well with the Steelers. But Malik Neighbors, I think as well, you could say with Justin Jefferson. I know it's only been one season, but it feels like Malik Neighbors, it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball to. He's one of the elite wide receivers that you can get early on in the draft. He will come with risk, but I definitely think that he has that upside with his pure talent that he brings to the table every single week. So that's my top 5 fantasy wide receivers heading into the 2025 season. Let me know who you have as your wide receiver 1 heading into the season, who you want to be, which wide receiver, one of those that we covered today, which one are you targeting in the first round? So I appreciate everybody for tuning into today's video, and I'll catch you next time when we're talking about the top 5 quarterbacks next week. So have a good weekend, and so long for now.